You have received your rectangle set from the Handmade Afghans to Thank Our Armed Forces project. You have received 49 rectangles pinned into 7 piles of 7. Each pile is labeled with the appropriate column. You're going to start with column 1 and 2. Open the pins, but do not remove the pins from the rectangles. Remove the first 2. To label the first rectangle you're going to work with, write your name on the label and pin it. Pick up the 2 rectangles and holding them back to back, you might want to pin them to hold them in place. Start crocheting at the right hand edge, going through both rectangles. Continue across until you have gone all the way across the long end of rectangles from column 1 and column 2. When you have completed crocheting across the long edge of the first 2 rectangles, you will have a ridge that runs down the center. This is the right side of the Afghan. Do not cut the yarn at that point, but pick up the next 2 rectangles from column 1 and column 2. Again, place them back to back, pin them in place if needed, and begin to crochet the long end of rectangles 2. Working your way across the long end again. The first 2 rectangles from columns 1 and columns 2 have been attached. We're going to pick up the 3rd from the set, and again holding them back to back, pin them in place, and again without cutting the yarn in between rectangles, start to crochet. You're going to crochet across the 3rd rectangle, picking up then the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rectangles until columns 1 and columns 2 are completed. Columns 1 and columns 2 are completed. I'm about ready to take my last stitch in joining these 2 columns. I take the last stitch, I leave a nice long tail, and column 1 and column 2 are complete. This is what it will look like when it's finished. I'm about to start column 3. Unpin the rectangles from column 3. Take the first one off the top, back to back with the first rectangle of column 2. Pin them together. Start at the right hand edge again. And continue crocheting across. See this nice little edge, this long tail? Crochet that in, catching it as you go down the length. Okay, then you won't have that loose tail later to have to weave the end in. The first rectangle of column 3 has been sewn on. I'm going to continue with the second. Take the second rectangle off the pile, back to back, pin it if you think you need it. Without cutting the yarn again, we're going to start sewing the second rectangle of column 3 onto the second rectangle of column 2. Continue across that edge. Continue all the way across. When that one's done, you're going to pick up the 3rd rectangle and continue all the way across column 3. You're going to do the same for columns 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then we'll be back. Okay, this is what the blanket will look like when the 49 rectangles have been sewn together in columns. Now we have to sew together the rows. Okay, on the same side of the Afghan as the column crocheting, we're going to attach across the rows. Hold the rectangles back to back again. I like to pin the first one and the last one just so that they hold together. Start on the right hand side, attach your thread, and just start crocheting across. Okay, when you get to the ridge, I like to make a little slip stitch and attach the new row to the old row, just to hold the yarn down a little bit. So I make a little slip stitch, maybe an extra stitch, and then continue with the next set of rectangles. Okay, continue to crochet across this row to the end. You don't have to end the yarn, you don't have to cut it, not until you reach the very end. Then you're going to continue connecting all the other rows until it's done. This is what the almost completed Afghan looks like. The ridge is on the top, that's the right side. All the columns, all the rows have been completed. Now all that's needed is the single crochet border around the entire blanket. Okay, to do the single crochet border around the blanket, attach your yarn to any spot along the side of the blanket. Don't start it in a corner. Do a single crochet all around the border, just grabbing any loose ends that you might come across. Don't make it too loose, don't make it too tight, and try not to leave any gaps. When you get to the corner, do 3 single crochets in a corner stitch, and that will let you turn the corner. I know it's hard to see with the black on black, but 3 stitches in the corner, and then continue down the next side. Okay, as you can see, 1 row of single crochet has been completed to form the border around the Afghan. Only do 1 row of crochet. Now I just want to make a correction to something I said earlier, in that I sewed the rows together. No sewing as in with a needle and thread has been done. Everything is crocheted together on the blanket. And here you see the completed Afghan.